Major causes of death are rooted in blood vessel damages, except cancer. Number 1356, Sharp 700, September 15, 2025. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category: Vessel damages. Preface. During the past 35 years, I have suffered from obesity, type 2 diabetes, 5 cardiovascular episodes, severe kidney problems, neuropathy, retinopathy, and most recently, a stroke. In summary, I have endured nearly all of the foreseeable consequences of damage to both macrovascular and microvascular systems. These cumulative experiences form the background and motivation for this research work. Over the past 16 years of self-study in medicine, my goal has been simple: to prevent early death by understanding the real root causes of disease. Without medical school, teachers, colleagues, or patients, I had to rely entirely on myself. By reading more than 10,000 published papers, and analyzing over 4 million of my own health data points, I gradually reached one unifying observation: most of the world's illness and death can be traced back to different kinds and degrees of blood vessel damage. Macrovascular damage, cardiovascular disease, CVD, is the best known example, encompassing heart attacks, strokes, and peripheral artery disease. These conditions arise from large vessel atherosclerosis, hypertension, and vascular calcification, and together, account for about 30% of all global deaths. While stroke is often grouped under CVD in global statistics, it is valuable to analyze it separately. Stroke bridges both macrovascular pathways, large artery stroke, and microvascular pathways. Lacunar or brainstem stroke. Microvascular damage. Microvascular strokes result from injury to the small, penetrating arteries that supply deep brain structures such as the basal ganglia, thalamus, internal capsule, or brainstem. Lacunar stroke, ischemic, small infarcts in deep brain regions. Brainstem hemorrhage, such as pontine bleed, rupture of fragile perforating arteries, branching from the basilar artery. Small vessel damage also drives other deadly diseases. Chronic kidney disease, CKD, is one of the clearest examples. It is fundamentally a microvascular disease of the glomeruli, most often caused by diabetes and hypertension. CKD contributes to millions of deaths each year, frequently through cardiovascular complications. Neurological conditions share this same root. Stroke, vascular dementia, and lacunar infarcts all arise from vessel damage. Complications such as diabetic retinopathy and neuropathy, though not always directly fatal, are serious microvascular disorders that cause blindness, disability, and often precede mortality. The big exception: cancer. Cancer is the one major category of disease, not primarily rooted in vascular damage. It accounts for about 17 to 20% of global deaths and is driven by genetic mutations, uncontrolled cell growth, immune evasion, and metastasis. There is overlap: obesity, diabetes, and chronic inflammation, all linked to vascular disease, also raise cancer risk. Still, cancer remains distinct as the leading non-vascular cause of death. A unifying principle: most medical specialists see only part of the picture. Cardiologists focus on heart attacks, nephrologists on kidney failure, neurologists on stroke, and endocrinologists on diabetes. Each field remains within its own silo. By contrast, my outsider's path forced me to connect the dots. A heart attack is a large artery blocked or ruptured. A stroke is a brain artery blocked or ruptured. CKD is kidney microvessels destroyed. Neuropathy and retinopathy are tiny vessels damaged. The common denominator is vascular damage, with cancer as the primary exception. I reached this conclusion not through formal teaching, but through study, data analysis, and personal suffering. This integrative view helps explain why people die, and how prevention could be improved. Why damaged vessels lead to death. The explanation is straightforward. Blood vessels are the body's transport system, carrying oxygen and glucose to every organ. As an engineer, I compare them to engines. Oxygen is like air, glucose is like fuel. When vessels become clogged, stiff, or ruptured, this transport fails. The heart, brain, kidneys, eyes, and nerves are starved of oxygen and nutrients. Just as an engine is starved when its supply lines are cut. Without oxygen and fuel, organs fail, and when enough organs fail, the body itself cannot survive. This is why vascular damage sits at the core of most mortality diseases. Macro-vascular and microvascular stroke. Strokes can arise from both large and small vessel damage. Macro-vascular stroke, blockage or rupture of major arteries such as the carotids or middle cerebral artery, often due to atherosclerosis and calcification. Microvascular stroke, blockage or rupture of tiny, penetrating arteries that supply deep brain regions. Diabetes, hypertension, aging, and calcification gradually weaken these fragile vessels. My own stroke on June 21, 2025, was a hemorrhagic bleed in the pons, supplied by small, perforating arteries from the basilar artery. This was a classic microvascular stroke. caused by rupture of fragile calcified vessels. Recognizing the distinction between macro and microvascular pathways is essential. The same four drivers, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and dyslipidemia, together with vascular calcification from aging and chronic disease, damage vessels of all sizes and lead to equally life-threatening outcomes. Global death rates. Macro-vascular diseases. Heart disease, approximately 17% of global deaths. Stroke, approximately 11%. Other macro-vascular, peripheral artery disease. Heart failure, approximately 4%. Total macro-vascular, approximately 32%. Microvascular diseases. Kidney disease, mainly diabetes-driven, approximately 3 to 4%. Other microvascular retinopathy, neuropathy less than 1% directly. Total microvascular, approximately 3 to 5%. Combined, macro plus micro. Prevalence, approximately 20 to 30% of adults worldwide. Deaths, approximately 35 to 37% of global deaths. VMT analysis results. Data preparation. I began systematically collecting my personal health data in 2010. Covering lifestyle factors and biomarkers. The datasets became complete enough for reliable analysis starting in 2014. Therefore, the annual averages from 2011 to 2013 are estimates from partial data. Because many biomarkers require physician-ordered tests, the scope of data collection was limited. Macro and microvascular risk indices. Here is that description. Read aloud in English. To analyze these pathways, I designed two indices built on four normalized inputs. T2D equals FPG divided by 90, plus EAG divided by 120, all divided by 2. BW equals BMI divided by 25, plus VF divided by 13, all divided by 2. BP equals H. SBP divided by 120, plus PP divided by 50, all divided by 2. Stiffness equals R. Age divided by 70, plus lipids, M4, all divided by 2. Where lipid equals LDL divided by 100, plus 50 divided by HDL, plus TG divided by 150, plus TC, divided by 200, all divided by 4. The indices differ only in weighting. Macro risk equals 0.35 times T2D, plus 0.30 times BW, plus 0.20 times BP, plus 0.15 times stiffness. Micro risk equals 0.35 times T2D, plus 0.30 times BP, plus 0.20 times stiffness, plus 0.15 times BW. Macro risk emphasizes body weight as a driver of large vessel disease, such as CVD and major stroke. Micro risk shifts weight toward blood pressure and stiffness, which are stronger drivers of small vessel disease such as CKD, neuropathy, retinopathy, and lacunar stroke. This dual index framework offers a structured way to evaluate how macro and microvascular risks evolve side by side. Data interpretations. The data table of macro risk and micro risk aligns well with both the defined equations and my personal medical history. In the early years, from 2011 to 2012, the indices were very high. Macro risk 1.57, micro risk 1.59, reflecting poor diabetes control, obesity, and repeated cardiovascular events. Over time, as I adopted stricter lifestyle management, the indices steadily declined. My hypertension index, BP, increased from 0.92 in 2021 to 1.02 in 2025, including an acute SBP surge to 175 mm of mercury, and signaled the elevated stroke risk that materialized on June 21, 2025. In addition, my stiffness index, reflecting vascular calcification, rose to 0.97 by 2021, and remained high through 2025, further contributing to my stroke. By 2025, my macro risk was 0.92 and micro risk 0.93, both slightly below the normalized baseline of 1.0, yet still high enough to signal ongoing health threats. These downward trends confirm the effectiveness of my interventions in lowering risk factors such as blood glucose, body weight, and blood pressure. However, the data also illustrate an important reality. Once vascular damage has accumulated, it cannot be fully reversed. This explains why, despite favorable risk indices in recent years, I still experience severe complications, including kidney disease, neuropathy, retinopathy, and ultimately a pontine hemorrhagic stroke in 2025. The two risk equations also reflect the different pathways of disease. Macro risk, weighted more heavily toward body weight and diabetes, explains the development of cardiovascular disease and large artery stroke. Micro risk, with greater emphasis on blood pressure and stiffness, mirrors the progression of kidney failure, neuropathy, retinopathy, and microstroke. Together, they provide a quantitative framework that connects my decades of medical history with measurable risk trajectories. VMT energy results, concluding observations. Three key findings emerged from this viscoplastic energy analysis. First, the total VMT energy for micro-risk. 0.46 is about 18% higher than that for macro-risk, 0.39. This indicates that microvascular damage has been greater than macrovascular damage over the past 15 years from 2011 to 2025. Second, both risks share nearly identical VMT energy contribution ratios. T2D is 34%, BP is 25%, BW is 23%, stiffness is 17%. This consistency demonstrates that the underlying pathophysiological processes are the same. Diabetes remains the primary driver of vessel damage, followed by hypertension, with obesity third and vascular calcification fourth. Third, the cumulative VMT energy trajectories for both macro-risk and micro-risk are almost identical, reaching 96% by 2014. This indicates that the majority of my vascular damage occurred between 1994 and 2013, during the early decades of type 2 diabetes onset and poor control. Although my strict lifestyle management after 2010 helped to stabilize the situation and prevent further worsening, the irreversible footprints of vascular damage had already been imprinted on both macro and microvascular systems. Appendix VMT methodology. The viscoplastic energy model, VMT, quantifies chronic disease progression, using stress-strain principles adapted from engineering materials science. For details, please search Health Talk with EclaireMD on YouTube. Disclaimer: this content is for educational reference only and not medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be edited or republished as your own.